Good evening, everyone. Welcome to TSB First Fridays, the November edition. Every month, we set the stage on the first Friday of the month for the talented writers and creatives in our community to share their work with us. I'm so glad that you're here with us this evening. My name is Tally Veron. I'm the founder and publisher at the Soapbox Press, and I'm so excited to be your host tonight. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that although we're gathering in a virtual space, the Soapbox Press rests on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We encourage you to learn the history of the land you are currently on as we reflect on the past and acknowledge the changes that can be made going forward in the process of truth and reconciliation. In a few short moments, I'll welcome our first performer to our virtual stage. But before I do, let's take care of a bit of housekeeping. To ensure the most enjoyable experience for you here this evening, closed captions will be enabled shortly, and once they are, you'll be able to press the closed captions button on the bottom of your screen. I encourage you to use the chat box throughout the event to share your love with our performers and also to talk to each other. Now, I'd like to welcome our first performer to the stage, Natalie Simonian. Natalie is a 23-year-old master's student from Toronto, working on fatty liver disease by day. By night, she writes poetry about the human experience. She began writing to process how she was feeling during her undergraduate years, and she found a safe space when putting her feelings into words. She writes to communicate thoughts and feelings that are deemed vulnerable. She hopes that if people read her words and if they resonate, they too will become okay with being vulnerable.
Hello. Okay, my first piece is called Finite Beauty. Finite beauty in finite things, like hearing your name in a song that's not meant to be about you, but describes you just the same. Meaningless exchanges with meaningful people. You gave them your fiber of being, they gave you a contact card, so that you could give them a call when you were in the neighborhood. Storms raging on outside your window, but to the onlooker, it's passing. Friendships blooming and then receding. It came like fire and blew out like the wind. And the second poem that I'm going to read today is on the topic of OCD. At the height of my OCD, inanimate objects made more sense to me than people did. And steps that came in sixes lit up my world with colorful serotonin bursts. At the height of my OCD, I looked back at old photographs to try and trace back the steps between here and normalcy. At the height of my OCD, I made a pact with my mother to choose happiness. Every thought felt like a relapse. At the height of my OCD, I began writing things. I came close to touching joy, with poetry my salvation. And then the last one I'll read is a topic that's really important to me. It's about Armenia. Okay. To capitalize on pain takes a unique sort of evil, the kind of evil that burrows into the mind of blissful youth. Instead of leaving room for flowers to grow, the system planted a seed of hate, and it bloomed until it became hard to make shapes out of the darkness, until all that was left was an unending quest for violence. But when questioned, not one could answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. That was so powerful. Our next performer this evening is Confessions of a Lady. Flying from Cambodia to Thailand, words started pouring out of her. She wrote for hours recounting the details of her adventures. She felt safe and at home in the midst of her writing, returning to this home every day since. Confessions of a Lady represents a woman's personal journey through love and healing. She embarked on her mission to share, inspire, and bring comfort to others in 2019. Through countless late nights spent alone with her journal, she could feel herself beginning to heal from the grief she experienced earlier that year. Writing gave her the wings she needed to carry herself through these challenges. Poetry brought her comfort in a way nothing else could. Today, she is well on her way towards solace by the kindness she continues to rediscover in her friendships with family and in love.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexandra and I write on my blog and Instagram page under the pseudonym Confessions of a Lady. Tonight I'll be sharing some poems that I wrote on my travels in Asia, Cambodia, and Thailand, and I'll also be writing some love poetry from this year. There is a bird, now two, chasing each other in the sky. Oh my, what a sight, what beauty young love sounds like. A force to be reckoned with, a force to crave. Wildlife is mystifying. With no creatures in sight, I can hear them all. Birds, crickets, and snakes. I wish I knew how to fully appreciate all that nature has to offer. Each new ecosystem I encounter reminds me of this limited line of sight. I feel small yet strong, incapable of surrendering to the wild. A part of me at peace in the loneliness, a part of me set free. Upside down, the flower lays, behaving as though it has rained, the heat exhausting all that remains, the only temperament this place has faced. A climate few could have survived, yet here the flower prevails, in the place where it never rains. Pure relaxation of every kind, of the body, soul, and mind, undisturbed at last in peace, a feeling all too fleeting, yet undeniably real. How rare it is to feel all this good, nourishing. I've earned this more than I grant myself permission. This is wonderful, a true gift. The sun is gone, the sky is near. The sights are bright and shining clear. As I travel through the streets, I wonder how I am really here. The road is frantic, but I am centered as air rushes through me. I am shaken, but unwavering. That to be here is courageous. I trust in him, I trust in us, that we have not mistaken our path for a vacation. The rhythm is undeniable as it beats in my chest. I feel its power, anger, strength raging in my depths. Inconceivable a night like this, where music fills every void, and I forget that I am torn. He is here, and the string should help. I think, though I don't know why. It's okay, he is here, and I feel safe. What is difficult to express will often possess a special place in your heart. These roots in you need water to flow through if you wish to let them grow. There is a fear I've seen between these sheets of unfulfilled dreams to which I want to speak. Walk down the street, really look at everyone I meet. There's love and kindness to be shared here before the night falls and the day reappears. I look into your eyes, searching. Your gaze reassures me I am enough. We deserve everything love is. We were never too much. When I look in your eyes, I don't want to look away. I forget time and the place, whether it's sunny or it rains. And if there are clouds in the sky, I pay them no mind. Your touch has become my favorite sight. I'll stare at the city skyline, glance up at floating clouds, breathe in this breeze as it whistles through the trees, admire all of these elements, only to remember you. I often stop to think how this is all possible. Even now in the midst, you are always so sure of me. Thank you for giving me your time and trust. It feels as though you take great care with love. You look to me and ask, what do you want? No man before you has shown me this, without the expectation of a destination to fuel his own afflictions. We'll sit and talk for hours on fears and predispositions until our eyes sparkle from love's ammunition. And we are too tired in the early morning to continue this conversation. We embrace and retrace the clarity we've gained, seeing kindness and acceptance across the other's face. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Next, I'd like to welcome Nat. Nat's poems seek to spark growth by implanting resonant truth in curious soil.
Hi everyone, so tonight I'm going to share a poem called Now's Unsent Letter as a Futures Raft. I've been hoarding my up-a-notch level of honesty. Adjourned letter, the stampless guilt. They're consequential word conceit. Words that would hastily test the maximum tonnage of deliberate course charting that our nebulous balance beam of unfolding can tote. In the unsent letter, I chose my remarks' leanings like hand-picked berries. I got precision certified light on how keeping the recipient as just myself is my way of maturely clogging up your otherwise impending doubt. That I'll always try my best to step up as your creative spout. Where closeted and zany ideas can be funneled guard down style. Even as you'll at times be giving precedence to needs of yours that pitch their tents in worth exploring campgrounds, extraneous to me. Not mailing the letter is me tendering a suggestion for our love's curfew, to treat your unvoiced but alive boundaries with respect's cushiony handrail, to save you from feeling pressed into definitive line drawing with necessity's thickness. Sought out source of light and shadow refraction is an honor in 5/4 that I don't want to putter away by joining in on one too many rounds of ego blackjack. I've affirmed how to guide us gently to mutually thrilling conversational terraces, like a curious foot soul wiggling in slow motion, patiently putting out feelers in a new orthotic foam cast. I've learned to co-create with your input, a safe haven for you to unzip your inner world stretch marks to, a trust zone where your floral-based sounds of excitability can come out to play, are inhaled with pride, and are met with bare witnessing in mind. If your eyelids lap that letter, you might reckon that my truce mouthful was contemplating dressing up as an imposition for Halloween this year. So I'll keep being your freedom's caregiver by holding back that letter. We've managed to ditch the topic strainer from our dialogue's kitchenware sets. No need to separate healing's water slide down morning dew from fizzling out's pudgy waterlogged stream of despair. All varieties of your tears are welcome to park here. I fear that you could interpret my letter's content as a toll booth lobbying for more stature than we have this far incurred. If the cost is you backtracking on your firm degree of boundless openness with me, I'll loosen my projections wallet policy from airtight ice's rigidity to a joint harvesting of elongation's barley, on becoming's miraculously not laid out terms, by safekeeping what follows Dear Marjorie as just another quarantine journal entry. Now's letter as a future's raft. Putting your needs first is my premier goalpost. So not sharing the letter is my personal sacrifice. Pruning today's excess to breed an influx of receptiveness for where you are currently at. In reality's scenes, historically, I've literally chased you at peak velocity playfully, through conservation centers and without conservation, in immersive conversations. Yet you've enjoyed my spurts of to and fro speed changes the most. I just realized that when I was chasing you with gusto, you were mapping out the where to next route for us both. An involved task, one you never asked for. You deserve a companion that doubles as a co-navigator. So maybe by not sending the letter, by weathering the outspoken pigeonholing conditioning to impulsively hand stamp a first draft of hearts on your palm before letting time choreograph the contour lines, by commissioning gradualism and the being known as the most fitting artists to narrate what crystallizes, by entrusting formlessness, by hugging let's see, directive free, we'll be simultaneously carving a multi-year slow burn pumpkin of compatibility. This time I won't add my initials to the sign-up sheet you posted, offering lessons in tactics for loving you accredited by you. I'll just let pure inquisitiveness, faith foraging, inventiveness on demand do the gut talking. Like a not so silent partner that assembles a scoop of assertion for when you want to be led, that refrains from hogging the rhythm and knows how to hot potato the reins. Now for vision sharing, also known as the beaker of emergent undertakings. For my questions to be metaphorical helium balloons of unconditional love, equipped with a built-in pump, to adhere to chagrin sporadic visitation hours instead of defaulting right into trimming them. My name won't be found on the class roster, but you'll fuel my enrollment in the love discovery course that you front through my not shaping. I'll be lever-free acceptance, unaccompanied by a dependency on making googly eyes at guarantees. So any traction we botch or achieve is playbook free. Thank you so much for listening.
Oh, Nat, thank you so much. That, I think, your poem gave us all a lot to think about and reflect on. Next, I'd like to welcome Riz V. Rose to the stage. Riz is a 22-year-old poet and fiction writer based in Hamilton, Ontario. Her journey with words began with reading children's books about magic and exploration, and it continues in her adult life with writing about the very same things, magic and the exploration of human emotion. She uses poetry to come to terms with how she feels and uses fiction writing to traverse the deepest corners of her inner world of imagination. She has spent her gap year learning about outer space, working through her lengthy to-read list, and catching up on the last season of Schitt's Creek.
Hi, everyone. I'm Riss. It's so nice to be back at the Soapbox First Friday, so thank you for having me, and thank you all for coming. I've got 3 pieces to share today. The first was written over 3 years ago, and it's from my second collection called College Street and Daydreams, which was a collection about moving to Toronto and also about what happened when my mind wandered off on its own. This piece is a self-love type of piece, and it's called Burn. They always warn you against playing with fire, when really, they should advise you to burn. Burn as bright and long and hot as you can. Blaze like the setting sun, an inferno in the sky, like a house in the middle of the night, smoke spilling out the windows of the soul. Burn like your heart and your face when he whispers in your ear, like the earth's core split and spilled all over you. Burn, darling, and beware instead the people who extinguish. This next piece is from my third collection, Wildflowers. If you've been around for the open mics before, you know that this collection turned all of my experiences, all the people I knew, everything I felt, and turned them all into flowers or other things in nature. This piece is about a drive I took to go see someone who I don't think cared about me as much as I did them. So there was hope in this trip, but also the impending sense of heartbreak. It's called Orange Leaves. This drive to you makes me regret every harsh word I ever said about October and its death. This drive to you, it makes me fret. I'm filled with excitement and yet with dread. Could I stay on this road forever instead? This drive to you of orange and red is as lovely as you and as burnt in my head as all these words I've left unsaid. This drive to you, like when we met, left me awestruck and just as dead as the falling leaves of orange and red. And this last piece is from the collection I'm currently working on called Landscape. In this collection, I feel like I'm physically floating in the sky and looking either up at the stars or down at the ground and writing about what I see and what I feel. This piece, Tangerine, was actually written after listening to the song Epiphany by Taylor Swift. I was lying down listening to it and I felt like my body was just rising up into the sky. It's one of my favorite pieces I've ever written and was the poem that shaped the whole collection. So here is Tangerine. It's calling to me and I'm scared. Does your body just know when it's time to let go? But then the clouds turn from harsh white against shallow blue to warm tangerine under deep indigo, and my hand is raised, reaching to where it calls me. I close my eyes and let Epiphany carry me up. And there is his face, perpetually 22, smiling and unafraid, for he has had years to get used to this new landscape. I let him guide me inside, as where there below us fades to nothing, and my body along with it. Thank you so much.
So much, Riz. That was spectacular. Next, I'd like to welcome Kayla Gallagher to the stage. Kayla is a story seer, a disabled writer, poet, and activist who's been published by the Northern Appeal, Lucent Dreaming, and the Soapbox Press. She's spoken at York Region's Take Back Night March in 2019, and her poetry has been featured on the Introverted Activist blog. With her writing, she seeks to tell the stories that need to be told.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. The first poem I'm going to read is one about the environment called What Is It About a Hand? What is it about a hand? The chaos we bring to a tepid pool of water. A hand forcing an ecosystem out of alignment. What is it about us? Non-animal animals, humans, that bring such a selfish chaos to life we have no patent on. Death and decay remained endlessly the inception of life and growth, a grand rhythmic cycle encompassing both. Everything we touch is risked, subject to unconscious self-rendered objection, unthought humans' deception. Self-inflicted habitat destruction, for life remains as water. A fluid, simply woven complexity, compounded into internalized self-destruction. This state of permanent disassociation, a collective deforestation, city dwellers with flame fingers, graze the bark of matchstick trees, admiring the beauty of great forest gods that fall, taken entirely by the flame our fingers hold. Reduced to ash in the blink of a solitary human eye, left forgotten, our unconscientious consumption gives way. Yet, we still believe rising waters lie. What is it about a hand? The betrayal in its skin, the creation destroying the creator. What is it about our hands and the hurricanes we create in tepid pools of water? So that was What Is It About a Hand? And the next poem is Quiet, titled Quiet. It is a time of quietening, when the moon has settled low in dark skies and remains the inflection of thought. It's a time of reflection enveloped by the hush of what lingers unspoken, untried, unuttered within the soul, a space apart. It's time to remember who you've been, who you are, and remember the streets you walked down. Worlds you've escaped to open in you, the paths you are now privileged to take. It's a time to relive several lives you've lost in the human world's cutting cruelty, Time to remember friends, loved ones, and the monsters who you couldn't stop. It's time to hold on to stars, for they guide you as the moon listens, so you may ascertain the silence within yourself. It's time to coalesce. Trace your fault lines back. Watch them lose themselves and fade into a new world where scars are a distant memory. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Kayla. Next, I'd like to welcome Lynn to the stage. Lynn is a Vietnamese-Canadian immigrant and writer, passionate about examining depictions of marginalized identities in popular culture and creating space for underrepresented voices in mainstream media. Her words have been published in Loose Leaf Magazine, The New York Times, and more. She holds an HBA in English from the University of Toronto and specializes in writing creative nonfiction and children's literature. Her ongoing projects include the revision of 2 manuscripts, a memoir on leaving home, and a children's portal fantasy completed for NaNoWriMo in 2018.
Thank you, Tally. I'm going to be reading a piece. It's a personal essay. It's going to be published in Sticky Rice Magazine this month, and it's about my relationship with food. The title is The Sixth Love Language. My mother taught me to love in the language of crab noodle soups, deep-fried spring rolls, and steaming pots full of pho bao. I would recognize her bunziukuo anywhere, and I tasted in her mother's recipe as well. We come from a culture that never questioned whether food was more than sustenance. We always knew it to be. Have you eaten today? The words replace how are you? They cross generations and even death itself. I see that in the fruit we lay on the altar every new moon and full moon, alongside a teacup and burning incense. I see it in the meticulously prepared meals laid out for death days, for special occasions that we continue to share with our ancestors by cooking for them first. I learned to love in the language of food, but the consequences of that ran deep. It also provided me the tools for neglect. My relationship with food echoed my openness to the world and to myself. When I began to play around in the kitchen at 9 years old, I made pizza, spaghetti bolognese, and chocolate chip cookies. The foreign taste made me who I wanted to be. I ate selectively, I groaned at dinner time, and told my mother to not bring any of her dishes to school. Then at 13 years old, when fat began to show on my hips, my thighs, and my stomach, I ate little at all. I could never stop the way self-love intertwined with food. They mirror each other like a dance. One plummets, the other follows. Years of skip meals became a habit I still struggle to shake at the end of a hard day, a hard week, when I look up and realize that food had been the first thing to go. When we fall, we go back to basics, back to the white rice spoon-fed to me by my mother, my grandmothers, and my aunts. The practice of nourishing myself became the foundation to growing my self-esteem. Timid at first, I clung on to staple dishes for safety. Then I took more risks in life, and I took more risks in food. I could no longer tell which one came first. Only retrospectively did I recognize the road to knowing myself had been lined with dishes along the way. First in the baby steps of instant noodle packages, prepared how my father likes them, then in leaping strides of a Hungarian goulash on a chilly evening out. I asked my mother for her recipes then, but she told me they did not exist. She told me they lived in feeling and tasting and experience handed down. I tried to copy down a few words, but they felt empty without her hands on mine the first times I rolled a spring roll. She stood behind me when I learned to clean beef bones for pho. She taught me how to pick each vegetable apart. No shortcuts exist in love languages, so we spent hours speaking in mother tongue. Over and over, we practiced the gestures passed across lifetimes, an intentional process of care that can always be recovered. As I healed and celebrated my body, I learned to nurture myself. As I embraced my roots after a dozen years of rejection, the longing for bunziukuo brought me home, back to the stovetop where noodle soups bubbled, waiting for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. That was beautiful. And our final performer for this evening is Zara Tutensab. Zara's poetry is fragmented and broken like her mama's English. As a kid, she wrote poems to help her cope with new places, faces, and emotions while traveling back and forth between Tehran and Toronto. She was born in Toronto and grew up in the Greater Toronto Area, specifically in Scarborough, Ontario. She recently graduated with the BSc degree in Life Sciences at the University of Toronto in 2019 and double majored in English and biology. She is currently pursuing a Master's of Arts degree in the English and Film Studies program at the University of Alberta. In March 2019, Zara published her first poetry chapbook titled The Aftertaste with the Soapbox Press.
Thank you, Tally. So I'll be reading 2 poems today. The first poem is called Hijab Me Like This. Hijab me like this. I am from the hijab Maman stitched in Iran to migrate with, to be warm in poor nights when Scarborough gives birth to flying pigeons in rosy blue, gray hijabs we would use to paint Baba on our walls, to find his face when he leaves, hijabs I write on hopscotch tiles, to learn to count. One hijab is enough to break tongue, Maman said when big boy curiosity poked under my hijab. Is my heart like yours? But he said white skin isn't. This, I said, is a woman's strength. And red like pomegranates, Bibi would harvest, smells like spicy honey from saffron tea. Maman sips when she has a bad dream, and hijab feels real sweet with family. Maman raises with her hijab on firm while Scarborough yells dirty Muslim. You shower like this? Okay, the next poem I'll be reading is called Love Smells and Flowers Are Awkward. Love smells and flowers are awkward. The man died to the sound of a baby gasping for air. But Nana said he died because of cancer. And the baby pulls on my hijab to see his gooey face for the first time, to smell the cheese-like substance that coats his brown skin. As Maman breastfeeds him, I think she is crying for him, but Nana says it's happy tears for her baby being born 2 weeks too early with big dark eyes that look guilty, because he knows the man was a cyborg with aluminum and titanium legs, a glass eye he would remove randomly. He would say, there's no explanation when war needs men to shed blood or to witness death over and over, as if to justify himself to his body, why he's half man and half machine, and to his kids, why expropriating and exploiting a man's home would make a body rot on love. Collapsing into a decaying man took 8 years, during which he coaxed his son to fight for our revolution, he said, that gave birth to us, Mujahid, the defenders. But the man was always a poet, all hearts, 10 and only 10 for our beds and spare parts. Growing up with a regretful cyborg made life difficult. Maman thought I hated him for my brother's death. I hated him for glitching. Prayer beads bend and break under pressure. Baba's breathing brew bile under pressure. You wake up to broken prayer beads and Baba's bile vomit in the basin beside hospital flowers. Minutes before he dies, the baby cries. He is here and he is gone, waiting for each other like seasons. Spring has come, Baba. Let go of the winter cold. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zara. That was so powerful. Oh, and that brings our TSB First Friday in November to a close. What an incredible evening. Can we give a virtual round of applause, or everybody clapping in their homes, to all of our remarkable performers? I know I look silly, but I hope everyone else is clapping at home too. We would love for you to also join our next TSB First Friday happening on December 4th, and that is going to be our final First Friday of 2020, so we can all say goodbye to this unforgettable year together. And if you'd like to perform, then make sure you keep an eye out on our social media, so follow us at the Soapbox Press, as we'll release the sign up link in a couple of weeks. If you enjoyed tonight's event, then join us next Thursday, November 12th from 7 to 8 p.m. for the second installment of our cocktail series, where authors Cindy Aronson and Tamara Herman will be joined by mental health professional Jana Kerminska as they discuss mental health and body image in relation to the author's new novel, Jagged Edge. We'll be closing out the series on Thursday, November 19th from 7 to 8 p.m. as well for the final session called After the Honeymoon, where Cindy and Tamara will be talking about sustaining happy and healthy long-term relationships. Also, be sure to check out all the other events that the Soapbox is hosting this month. We're launching our You've Gone Incognito anthology on November 27th. And we're having a panel of poets that will be in scintillating discussion with Marcus Medford on November 18th. So we hope that we'll see you there. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much again to our incredibly talented performers. Without you, we would have no night like tonight. Have a wonderful evening, and I hope to see you all again very soon.
Thank you, Tally.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Tally.
Thank you. Good night. Good night, everyone.